Let's teach you how to develop and progress your own endurance training program. I'm going to give you a couple of keys here on how to look at your program. And these are from, I'm an exercise scientist. I spent 20 years coaching from high school to college to the elite Olympians, professionals, top people, top 10 in the world, top 10 at New York City, Boston marathons, all of that. And I'm going to try and break it down as simple as possible so that both novices and advanced runners can benefit from it. And to do so, let's introduce a couple of the key kind of concepts, okay? So first off is that for any distance or any event, performance has many components and they all interact and support one another. So we could look at this, which we often do from a physiological standpoint. We can look at things like VO2 max, lactate threshold, critical velocity, running economy, pure speed, speed endurance, speed reserve, all of these different things that physiologically and biomechanically matter. I think it's important to know those things if you're coaching at a high level. But for an athlete, I think we can simplify it a little bit more. And that's by looking at it as I would, I'm almost seesaw of speed and endurance, okay? And what we're trying to do is balance that seesaw. But the pivot point, the balance point, differs based on the event you are training for and your individual physiology. What does that mean? Let's take a 5K. The pivot point of that combination of speed and endurance will be different than a marathon because we need a little bit more endurance for a marathon than a 5K, which needs a little more speed. So that balance point shifts. Same with your individual physiology. If you have a more kind of fast twitch, speed comes natural versus slow twitch, endurance comes natural, that will shift where your balance point is based on your strengths and how you adapt to things. Okay? So remember this. And the way I like to see training is over the phase of training for your race, you're trying to end up at the perfect balance point. Now, it's important there that I say end up there. Because again, these components interact. We're going to use broad concepts, speed and endurance. If I do a lot of endurance stuff with not enough counterbalancing speed, guess what? It becomes a little harder to run fast. On the flip side, if I go, speed, intervals, very fast stuff all the time, and I'm talking speed, anything relatively fast to all out sprinting. Okay, we'll define it in a second here. But right now we don't need to. Okay, if we do too much speed without any endurance, guess what? Speed improves, endurance gets worse. We can't extend our ability. What we're looking at over the course of the season is to end up with our physiology and our event, the balance needed to master that event, given your physiology and your strengths and weaknesses. What that often means, and we'll talk about this, is that over a season, we're going to be a little unbalanced at times. We build endurance, we build a base with endurance, so we weigh that side down a little bit. But then when we get ready and closer to race day, we get into our competitive season, we're sharpening, we're adding more speed, we're maintaining that endurance side, but it rebalances the equation, okay? So temporary imbalance is okay as long as it's part of the plan, which gets me to the second part of your training plan. We are either building or maintaining a component. What does that mean? It means when we're building something, we emphasize it. We're doing it more frequently and probably to a higher stress load. When we're maintaining, it takes less to maintain something than it does to build it. So we're doing it less frequently. The load is lighter. Why? We're just maintaining it. During any period of time, we can generally only build a handful of things. Can't build everything at once. We don't have enough capacity to do. We can maintain more things. Why? It takes less load to do so. What does this look like in terms of training? We talked about speed and endurance, but I want to broaden this out and explain it a little bit more. If we look at speed and endurance, we have on the extreme sides, we have all out sprinting and just really slow jogging. But then we have every mixture in between until we get to that specific balance point. Let's use the 5K, for example. So on the speed side, we go from all out sprinting to 800 pace, to mile pace, to 3K pace, then to 5K pace. We're more specific. All of it is speed for the 5K, but there's general, further away speed, and there's closer support and specific speed. Same thing applies on the endurance side. Let's go from specific to general. We've got 5K, specific for the race since we're training for a 5K. We go up to 10K pace. It's still endurance, but it's fast. So it's close to specific. It's supporting. Then we go a little slower, half marathon. We're still supporting, but not as specific. We go to marathon pace, more general. We go to steady, more general. We go to easy, definitely general. Recovery, completely general. And what I mean is general endurance on that side. So the way I look at this spectrum is we want to, and this brings us to the third thing, in terms of building and maintaining, we want to think of it like a funnel. We want to build the support and funnel towards specificity while never leaving anything behind. That's the maintenance part. What does that mean? Beginning of the season, build the general. Short, fast sprints or strides, plus lots of long, easy, or very aerobic. Why? Builds our aerobic foundation, gets all the aerobic goodness going, the zone 1, zone 2 junk people talk about, whatever. Lots of easy. Alternatively, on the other side, we have to build our ability to be fast and relaxed. Or even with short hill sprints, meaning like 6 to 8 seconds with full recovery, we're learning how to recruit our fast twitch muscle fibers, training our brain to send that message from our brain to those fibers and say, hey, I know these fast twitch fibers are hard to recruit, but I got to get you used to them. Okay, that builds us a general speed base, not just an endurance base. Then we progress into the next phase. We say, hey, we're going to move a little bit more specific, not all the way, but a little bit. So what does that look like? On the speed side, we take our sprints and our strides and we do some 200s. A little bit longer, still not hammering them out with short recovery, but something maybe 8 to 10 by 200 with 90 seconds rest. So we're recovering. What is this? We're getting comfortable running faster, maybe at mile pace. We're getting smooth speed. We're extending that sprint speed into something that's a little bit more specific, still fast, but in a good spot. All right, on the endurance side, we now bring into the steady or the marathon pace or the lactate threshold. We're building that support, that general support to take our general endurance and say, hey, we've got to get our high-end aerobic abilities, our lactate threshold, et cetera, et cetera. We've got to convert some of this easy endurance to pressing that a little bit. So what does that mean? We start emphasizing that build. That means maybe once a week or once every 10 days, we're doing some 200s or 300s or a 4-3-2 breakdown at around mile pace without a ton of fatigue. So we get longer rest. On the flip side, we're doing progression runs, tempo runs, broken thresholds, etc. 10 by K at threshold, whatever it is. We're building that. Then we get more specific, meaning support. So we take those 400s and we make them at 3K pace. And then we go 600s at 3K pace, 800 at 3K pace. And we take those thresholds or those broken thresholds and we make them 10K pace kind of stuff. Where we're doing, instead of 10 by K at threshold, we're doing 8 by K at 10K pace. And then the last finishing touch is the specificity. We're going, in terms of the 5K, 6 by 800 at 5K pace, 4 by mile at 5K pace. You name the workout. And all along the way, we're building towards these specific workouts, not leaving the stuff behind. Meaning even when we're saying, hey, I need to do my 4 by mile, my 6 by 800 at 5K pace maybe once a week, the other day a week, we're doing some 200s one week. Then the next week, we're doing some tempo work. And then next week, we're doing some 10K pace or some 3K pace where we're mixing it in, a breakdown with some 3K mile 800 pace. We're maintaining it. Again, we don't have to do those workouts every week, but once every, again, 3-ish weeks or so, we maintain it depending on the balance you're getting at. Hopefully this is making sense. We build things, we maintain it. We work from the outside, the general, to the specific, while maintaining what we built up. How much of each depends on how much it takes to maintain. Sprint speed isn't going to take quite as much to maintain for a distance runner. So we do some hill sprints every 3 or 4 weeks. We do some strides. We do some occasional accelerations. Great. On the endurance side, we might need to do a weekly long run or a long run every 10 days to maintain general endurance and keep our volume of easy or recovery runs at 80% of what we were during the base. Takes a little bit longer to maintain it, or a little bit more. And that gets us to the final component, which I think is really important when it comes to these hard workouts, which we're generally talking about, is we want to progress by taking the next logical step. Meaning everything kind of builds together. As you see, we're building or maintaining, but it all interweaves, right? Those 400s that we were doing at 3K pace, we can extend those to where we're doing 600s or 800s at 5K pace. We're taking the next logical step as we weave together our endurance and speed. That even applies within the building of things. What do I mean by that? If we say, hey, I'm going to do 6 by 800 at 5K pace, let's say 230 800s with 230 rest, we'll go equal rest. After we adapt to that, we don't just say, hey, I'm going to do 6 by 800 every week for 6 weeks. We say, maybe after a week or two, I'm going to change it. Instead of 6 by 800, we're going to do 5 by 1,000. What did we do? We took a rep off, but we extended the reps. Length. Challenges it different. Other times we might say, hey, instead of 6 by 800 at 230, we're going to try them in 226 or 227. We're going to get a little faster. Or I'm going to adjust the rest. We're going to go from 230 rest down to 2 minutes rest. Or I'm going to incorporate different speeds to give us a specific but a slightly different stimulus. So instead of 6 by 800 at 230, we do something like 1200, 1000, 1000, 8, 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, or something like that, right? Where the 1200, a little bit slower than 5K pace. 1000s, 5K pace. 800s, tiny bit faster. 6, 4, 3, 2, faster. What are we doing there? Specific, but also tying in our ability to accelerate or deal with more fatigue at the end of the race. Prepping to learn how to turn over, to kick, to tolerate, etc. So we can blend it all in, but what we don't want to do is go from 6 800s at 230 to trying to run them in 220. Or from doing 6 400s to doing 10 400s. We want to take the next logical step. So there you go. We could go a million different ways and deep into every one of those concepts. But I think if you keep those in mind as we're going through workout and training development, those are your guides. Next logical step. You're either building or maintaining. Get clear on it. Training is like a balance of a seesaw. Sometimes it's intentionally imbalanced, but you want to bring that back in alignment given your strengths and weaknesses and the event you're training for. I use 5K as an event. We could do the same with the 10K or marathon, which would shift what we would consider speed and endurance and specific in general a little bit. Keep those in mind. Those are the foundation, and that's what it is. So until next time, Hope you enjoyed this deep dive into developing a training plan.